Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today we're going to be talking about the community of inquiry model and how we can relate that to physical education and then also to any content area where you might be teaching. But first, I'd like to give a shout out to the virtual listeners, as anybody who listens to this is going to be a virtual listener. Since nobody's participating in the live session, make sure you go along and take notes as we go, because there will be several questions that I ask you, maybe some things that I want you to do or fill out, or just maybe give a reflection on. So have a piece of paper with you. If you don't have one, pause the recording now, grab one, because after you're done with this, then you will post your comments, your reflection, all that to the discussion board. So make sure that you pay attention. Today is Friday, January 23rd, 2015, and as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about the community of inquiry model and how we can relate the model and all the different components to teaching our physical education majors at the college level. So first, just make sure that you have everything off and away and nothing or no one will bother you, because it'll help you pay better attention. So just make sure that it's quiet and all distractions are removed. Next, and we're going to do this just for fun, but as I would for any live class where we have a web conference, just make sure that you can see that it is recording, and that's only because I need to make sure that for the virtual listeners, they're able to listen and see. Make sure that you are able to see this. So if you hear me talking but you don't see any pictures come up or a PowerPoint slide, send me an email and let me know. Similarly, if you don't hear anything, if there's no audio, then you wouldn't be able to hear me talking right now, and I would hope that you would be able to figure that out and let me know as well. And if you can't hear very well, try adjusting your audio or making sure that you run an audio setup wizard by going to the tools bar up at the top and then clicking on audio and then audio setup wizard, or the audio setup wizard icon beside the little telephone up at the top. So today we are going to go through and give examples of different activities that really that you think would make online classes worthwhile and useful for students. The second thing we're going to talk about is basically related to the community of inquiry framework and the three main components. There are other smaller components, but we're just going to hit the three main ones today. And the last thing we're going to do is be able to, hopefully by the end of this little session, you'll be able to give examples from each of the three main components of the community of inquiry framework that would actually fit into either something that you do in terms of your online teaching or learning, and then maybe if you do similar to what I do in teaching physical education classes, then we could kind of relate it to a physical education area. So the first thing we're going to talk about is some tips from the trenches in terms of online learning. And before we get started, though, first I want you to think about an online course that you've either taken or have heard about that was less than desirable. So without naming names of either people, places, or really identifying anyone, because we don't need to know that, think about, maybe things that you enjoyed or that you thought were done well in that class. Anything that was not so good, so anything that you would consider bad. And if it was just completely ugly, again, don't identify people, places, names, anything like that. But, think about those things that made that experience either good or bad for you. And then the next thing that I want you to do is to make a list of the different components that you believe should be in an online physical education class that would make it worthwhile. Okay? So pause the recording, go ahead and do that. And then the other thing that you're going to do is think about components that are sometimes overlooked or missing. So do those two things, pause the recording, and come back. All right. So now that you've done that, we're going to watch a short video clip. I'm going to go ahead and post into the chat the URL, and we're going to do a web tour. And with this video, first before you watch it, basically they're going to talk about 8 different points. And what I want you to do is write down those 8 points and then give a little reflection on your thoughts about what was said in each of those 8 points. Okay, so now that you're back and have had a chance to watch the different tips for successful online learning, some of the things that I wanted to point out from that video, think about, and hopefully you wrote those down, but think about how many of those relate to the teacher and what the teacher has to do, okay? So the first thing, high touch, be available to students. That's on the teacher. Logging in, also something the teacher needs to do. Keeping it fun, make sure you do unexpected things. Be personable, have a social presence, give personal feedback. These are things that really do help make or break a class. And so, some of the other things that they mentioned was to be very explicit. Remember, you're not going to see these students face-to-face ever. So, if it's an online class, if it's hybrid, you might, but most of the time for these online classes, you never actually see the students face-to-face. So any instruction that they get is going to be virtual or online from you. So make sure that you're very explicit in what it is that you do. Making sure that you use external resources, using the technology intentionally, so don't just use all kinds of things that you think are cool. Use things that you think will really add to the class. So basically with that, what I want you to do now is to take a moment and pause the recording and reflect on what was said in the video. And what I'd like for you to do is compare the 8 tips that you were given and compare them to your experiences teaching. Okay, so give specific examples of experiences that you've either had as a student, coming at it from the student side, or coming at it from the instructor side. And then remember also you're going to need to add any notes that you take to the discussion board, so make sure you write everything down. So go ahead and pause now, and we'll come back as soon as you're done. So based on the research in this area, students kind of tend to feel isolated when they're part of an online class. And this is something where really teachers need to work extra hard. Again, for these online classes, students may never set foot on campus. They may never have that experience of being part of a community. And so we as instructors, as teachers, need to work extra hard in order to help the students feel like they are part of a class or part of a group or a community of learners. So what you see here is a Venn diagram. So basically what I'm going to point out is the main colors, the main primary colors. So you have red, blue, and green. Okay, so each of those main 3 colors represents one component of the community of inquiry framework. Okay, so take a moment, make a Venn diagram of your own, and take notes as we go. Okay, so the first component is social presence. And according to Garrison, social presence is essentially where the participants are able to make a meaningful connection with the group or class. They feel like they're included, they feel like they're part of the environment, part of the group, they feel safe to share their thoughts and experiences. So we're going to put that in the blue area. So right here, maybe. Give me a moment. Yeah, so right here in the blue area, this is going to be our social presence. Okay, so we will type in social. All right. So you have your social presence. And again, that really goes to making the students feel as though they're part of the team, okay? And that's so important, especially in, in physical education classes. Students have a sport background anyway, so they have that team mentality. So, think about that when you design your classes and the activities you have them do. The second area of the framework is that of cognitive presence. So we will add that then to the green area. And so we will type that in here. And basically, cognitive presence essentially refers to students making meaning of the content and then being able to reflect on problems or questions, activities, anything that the instructor gives to them. It's not enough for a teacher to just post all the information online and expect students to do like an independent study. It really isn't. That's not online teaching. And essentially that's what we're getting paid to do. So we need to make sure that we do have students actively engaging with the content, going through problems, questions, activities, things like that, that is designed to really help them understand the content. The third component is teaching presence. So we will add that here in the red. And basically teaching presence, in my opinion, is the way that basically classes are made or broken. So it makes or breaks the educational experience. Educational experience is what you see here in the middle. So that white area is going to be your educational experience. So we will put in a little E here for education. And so basically all three of these main components play a role in the whole educational experience for the student. If the teacher does not set the tone and encourage student interaction, especially in online physical education classes, students get bored. Really, think about it. Okay, physical education is movement, it's activity. That's what these students enjoy doing. We have to give them content in a way that can engage them. So, we need to remember that everybody doesn't learn the same way. Some people learn by doing, some people learn by seeing or hearing or experiencing or whatever. So you need to think about that. And if we don't have them engaging with each other or with the content, we're not going to make a good experience for our students. So the next slide that we're going to move on to is application. And really we're applying this to what we do best. Okay, we're teachers. That's what we do. So, based on the previous slide, look at this picture and tell me what you see on the left versus on the right. They kind of look the same, right? So you have a class of students, the teacher's at the front, the teacher's talking. Really the only difference is that there's an old school chalkboard on the left and, more up to date, 2014, 2015, computers, whiteboards, and whatnot. But here's the catch. As online instructors, we need to make sure that we do have a teaching presence within the course and within the instructional process. So you don't want to just post the information online and kind of let them go on their own. We still need that little yellow guy at the front of the class teaching and helping students interact with the content. You can let them figure things out on their own, but at the same time, as content matter experts, that's our job, is to be there and really help them learn these things. So by setting the tone, we can also encourage social presence from the students, which kind of then ends in a cognitive presence where they're able to interact with the teacher, with the content, and one another in order to learn the information that we present to them. So now what I'd like for you to do is make a list, okay? Write down the 3 components of the Community of Inquiry framework and tell me one example of how you can do each of these components in a course that you currently teach. Pause the recording while you think and write your answers. Now that you're back, what did you come up with? Do you think these are feasible based on your knowledge of online teaching and learning. If someone had told me 10 years ago in my master's degree program that this is what online education should look like, I would have been shocked. In the online courses I took at that time, there was minimal, if any, teaching presence in these physical education master's degree classes. I had attended that university as an undergraduate, and I was still living in the same town as my university. So even though my classes were all online, I was able to still meet with my professors as needed. But, you know, think about for the rest of the people in my class, like some of them were out of the country. So most of these classes were essentially independent studies. And, you know, while I appreciate their attempt at making an online learning experience, it was less than desirable for me. So now as I go into teaching these online classes, I have that memory in my mind, and now I'm able to make sure that I am that presence that kind of leads the class and helps them, moves them through the content, helps them interact with each other, encourages them to get ideas from each other. Everybody in my class is a teacher already, so they're out there, they're teaching, they all have great ideas and great experiences, so I encourage them to share with each other. And as they become more comfortable with that, they're becoming more open and asking for help, and it's really cool to see that. So take a moment and ask yourself how you can become a better teacher. Okay? So let's recap what we've learned so far. What are the three main components of the community of inquiry framework? The combination of those three components make up what? So what was that component right in the middle, the white spot? Okay, so now how can you as an online instructor implement the community of inquiry framework into what you do in order to make a better experience for the students? Cooperative learning is something that's utilized frequently in physical education classes. Basically, the idea with that is if you teach students to work together, they will achieve more. It kind of goes along with that whole team concept. Together, everyone achieves more, T-E-A-M, team. So what do you think would happen to student engagement and achievement in learning the content as well as in just the student interaction component if you were able to implement cooperative learning activities into your online classes? Write down one activity that you could use that would help students to interact more with one another and with the concept in the class that you currently teach. Do you think that by putting more of the responsibility on the students, they would have a better experience in an online class? Why or why not? So make sure you add that to your reflection. And if you have any other questions about anything we went over, this is just a brief overview of the Community of Inquiry Framework. But make sure you add them to your summary, and then don't forget to turn in your reflection to the discussion board before next week's class. Thank you very much, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.